Barbara was born in Tuscola, Illinois. It's a small town in the heart of the heartland, on August 31st of 1932. She was the youngest of 3 children and is survived by her 2 older brothers, Jim and Bill Victor. Her father, Sturgis Victor, owned a car shop, one of the first. He was a pioneer in developing hybrid corn and eventually became a banker. Her mother, Esther Victor, was a devoutly religious bundle of energy. She was a college graduate, again very unusual for the time. Spent her adult life as a homemaker and very much involved with all the community activities, church activities, and things in her small town. Little Barbara was a bubbly child. And that adjective comes from my sister Kristen. She was a bubbly child, active in cheerleading, baton twirling, 4-H, and just about every other constructive activity a small town could offer. She was also a bit of a tomboy. She would compete with her brothers in many different things, something that continued her entire life. I still remember when I was about 12 years old, going out in the driveway and playing horse and basketball hoop, and all my friends going home in shame because my mother had beaten them. Then there was the softball game at a church picnic, and this is a very my sisters are laughing because they know what's coming. I was just a boy. It was a softball game, so Mom was at the plate, and she slapped a double to left center field. And being Mom, she wasn't satisfied with a double, so she's going to try and stretch it to a triple. So she went sliding into third base, knocked the ball out of the third baseman's hands, and was safe. Got up with a big smile on her face. And the nun who was playing third then back to get a hot dog and shaking her head saying she's never going to play softball. Barbara adored both of her brothers. Some of her most passionate childhood stories were talking about her brother Bill having to go to war, World War II, and how that impacted her life. She told those stories often. As you watch the slideshow here, and we'll have it going again during the reception, you'll see lots of pictures of Mom with her brothers, and it's always an adoring look in her face. So her brothers were a big part of her life. Mom went to the University of Illinois. She majored in physical education, and she minored in science. She later got her master's degree in guidance and counseling. She was a proud sorority girl. She tells many tales of adventures with her sisters. You saw one of the pictures that came up was at Red Rocks. And when she was in college, her sorority had a camp for disadvantaged children here, and she volunteered here in Colorado, went to see Harry Belafonte and others at Red Rocks. So Colorado became part of her early in her life, and one of the things that she wanted to do in the last year or so is she wanted to go back to Red Rocks and saw a Beatles revival. It was very important to her to go back to Red Rocks and do something that she really enjoyed back when she was in college. After graduating in 1954, Mom went to work as a PE teacher at Crystal Lake High School in Crystal Lake, Illinois. She made the fateful move to be a PE teacher at University High School in Urbana, Illinois. And I say it's fateful because while at University High School, at her first faculty meeting, she met a handsome young mathematics teacher named Martin Wolfe. They were married 3 months after meeting. Wow. They each had inscribed in their wedding ring the same thing: love is eternal. And they were great examples of that. They were each other's best friends. I can honestly say I can't remember any kind of angry word between them. They had discussions, but never any kind of harsh words whatsoever. And the first thing that many of you said to me, and one of the first things I thought was, when Mom passed, that she and Dad are back together. And in each other's arms again. That's the eternal part. Love is eternal. After they were married, I joined them about a year later. They liked me so much they had 2 more. Lynn came a year after I did, and Kristen was several years after that. Mom took a hiatus from her career to dedicate her time, energy, and her nurturing love to her children. She was the coolest mom in town, both in Urbana, Illinois, where we first started, and then when we moved to Storrs, Connecticut, when I was about 8 years old, in 1968. She was Lynn's Brownie Scout leader, and she was the chauffeur to us in most of our activities. For several years, she volunteered at the Mansfield, which is our town in Connecticut, the Mansfield Senior Citizen Center. And then after we got into school and she could go back to her career, she became a guidance counselor at Turtlet High School in Connecticut. Throughout their adult lives, Marty and Barbara maintained close relationships with all of their family and many of their friends. Just to name a few, Russ and Jan Zoyer, very special friends who they were together with just about every summer, even though the Zoyers lived in Illinois and my parents had moved out to Connecticut. There were the Little Gray Ants, which were 3 of Mom's dear friends who my dad would also kind of tag along with. It was pretty neat to see the 4 of them and my dad having all kinds of adventures. Judy Rowe, Barbara Woodwillie, and Jeannie Rice were some 3 little gray ants from Connecticut. Together, Marty and Barbara raised us with love, a love of family time, of laughing, of playing games, of lake vacations at our cottage in Massachusetts, and eventually at our cottage on Branch Lake in Maine. They taught us to balance that with a dedicated commitment to education, to hard work, to sports, and to other endeavors. My sisters Lynn, Kristen, and I have many wonderful memories of my mother. I'm going to share with you some of her favorite sayings. Not all. The ones I can share in public. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's a poignant philosophy focusing on what really matters, and Mom believed that. She'd get up, she'd look outside, she'd say, "It's a honey of a day." And then showed her kind of her habitually optimistic view on things. Whatever's right. That was Mom's way of mediating or helping the family decide things. She knew right from wrong. She knew we knew right from wrong. So she wanted to keep a simple philosophy on how to make a decision. Whatever's right. By Josh! She would do. Kind of a butchering of the phrase, by gosh, but it was very endearing, and she would do that to kind of show her surprise. Land of Goshen, she'd say, which was kind of a trip back into her roots in the heartland, I think. Take time to smell the flowers. If you walk out in the lobby, you'll see that she did embroidery of that and hung in every place that she lived. And she definitely lived by that philosophy. So those were some of her favorite sayings. Lynn, Kristen, and I did some kind of brainstorming at some of our favorite memories of my mom. And this is the first one that came to my mind, so I wrote it down. The first thing that came to my mind was my mom as the character Greensleeves in a traveling community theater production, which she did with her probably best friend, Barbara Goodwillie. The troupe would tour around to elementary schools in our town and towns around it, and do plays that made children laugh and be happy. So my memory of Mom is, she invited me to watch, and so I walked into the school, and it was just a classroom with about 20 8-year-olds, kind of all boisterous, sitting in a semicircle. And the stage was just a curtain that they'd hung up in the front of the room. And the kids were kind of boisterous, and I just remember the curtains bursting open, and this little bundle of energy, dressed in a Greensleeve shirt, coming out and saying, "I am Greensleeves." All the kids' eyes went wide, and they were quiet, and they were mesmerized. And my mom went on to perform as Greensleeves, and that's just the first thing that came to my mind. Not to say that Mom was perfect. To this day, Lynn, Kristen, and I can't walk down the baking section of a grocery store without thinking of my mother. For all the smarts my mother had, she was a very smart woman, she could not remember that she already